The top court takes a stand. Condemning the recent mob lynching incidents across the country, the Supreme Court today asked the government and the parliament to consider creating a law against lynching.
What the Supreme Court judgment today essentially has done is this, that it has broadened the spectrum from not just cow vigilantism but also to other instances of mob lynching. Alongside, it has also put the onus on the centre, which the central government perhaps did not want to take for bringing about a policy change and taking all political stakeholders on board to enact this new law.
The Supreme Court said that the onus lies on both the centre and state governments to check these incidents. The three-judge bench that was hearing the case has passed the order on a batch of pleas seeking formulation of guidelines to curb such violent incidents in the country.
I'm extremely grateful and humbled and grateful to the Honourable Supreme Court for this judgment. And the Honourable Supreme Court has said that it is the duty of states to ensure an inclusive social order.
Relatives of victims of lynching have welcomed the Supreme Court stand.
मामला क्या है, गौ कसी के नाम पर मेरे भाई को मारा गया, कहने का सख्त से सख्त कानून बने तो और किसी को कोई गौ कसी के नाम पर ना मारा जाए.
As the Supreme Court makes its stand clear that lynching is a crime, Mirror now asks, how soon will the political parties get on board and enact this new law? The debate begins.
Watching the Urban Debate on Mirror now, Faye D'Souza, thank you for joining us. We need to have, viewers, a conversation tonight about lynching. We've had about 85 cases of lynching in the last several years. And this is basically when ordinary citizens get together and kill someone. It's happened so often, in fact, that the Supreme Court has pointed out that this has gone too far. The Supreme Court has pulled up the centre and state governments for not doing enough, in fact not doing anything, to send out a strong message that this is not okay. The governments have now been instructed to create a law that is so watertight that a lynching incident never ever happens again. Why is it that our state and central governments have not been able to do enough or not been able to do anything? Why haven't we gotten to the bottom of the messages or the WhatsApp messages that have resulted in these lynching? How many arrests have actually taken place? And of course, what happens when members of the ruling government are garlanding those who got out of jail after lynching someone? These are questions we have to ask tonight. Joining me on the show, Prashant Bhushan, Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court. Arya Masundaram is a Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court as well. Two brilliant minds, and I'm very glad to have them on the show. Tushar Gandhi is a petitioner. Alison Saldana, Assistant Editor with India Spend. India Spend is actually working on data as to the cases and the criminology behind these cases. Adil Singh for the Congress Party, Raman Malik for the BJP. I thank you all for joining us on the show. Mr. Prashant Bhushan, I'm going to start with you. The Supreme Court pointed out very clearly today that neither state nor central governments have done enough to stop lynching. Do you believe that more could have been done? What do you think, for example, the central government could have done to stop this behavior?
Well, to begin with, the Prime Minister should have stopped following all these trolls who are spreading fake news, who are spreading hateful news, who are abusing people in the filthiest and most vulgar language possible. Secondly, he could have sacked all these ministers who are garlanding these lynchers, who are making statements like that, Giriraj Singh, etc., in support of these lynchers. In support of these mobs, in support of these kind of hateful and violent social media statements, etc., which come out. So there are a large number of people who are in the government or spokesmen of the ruling parties in the center as well as in the states who are doing these things, who are directly or indirectly encouraging and inciting these lynch mobs. See, the lynch mobs are not merely the physical lynch mobs who actually go and do the violence. The lynch mobs are also those who spread these fake, hateful, abusive news through social media, through WhatsApp, etc.
Right.
So this is the first thing that they should have done. It's obviously being encouraged and openly being encouraged.
All right, Raman Malik had his hand up. He wants to respond. Raman Malik with the BJP responding to Prashant Bhushan. Go ahead, please.
So first of all, the sermon is being given by somebody who has professed the crown of India, that is Kashmir, to be going away from India. So that is the person.
Stay with the point. Stay on point,
this.
Mr. Raman Malik.
People who have been.
No, stay on point. Stay on point, please.
No, this is important.
No, I don't see how.
When Mr. Bhushan starts talking about verbal lynching, did he condemn Sonia Gandhi for calling the Prime Minister of the date a maut ka saudagar? Did he condemn that? Was that not a verbal lynching?
What about reiterating?
No, but hang on. Let me just specify. Although the court hasn't described or defined what lynching is, by the normal definition, it's when a group of people take law into their own hands. So, verbal lynching would mean when a group of people actually start to verbally abuse one individual.
My question is to Mr.
So let me
Bhushan.
break up Mr. Bhushan's questions.
Faye, please, let Mr. Bhushan
Why
answer
didn't
this.
anyone from the BJP condemn Jayant Sinha's act of garlanding lynchers, or accused lynchers, Mr. Raman Malik?
Has he not taken back his statement?
Not just
Has he
accused, they were
regretted?
convicted.
It was there in the paper.
No, he took back his statement because he came under a lot of flack. But how come no one from the BJP commented on it at all?
No. Did he take back? Did he regretted his statement, his acts? Yes or no?
I agreed with you.
And
He
then-
took his statement back, but I want to know
when it
why no
comes
one
to-
in the
when it
BJP
comes to
condemned
talking-
the act when it happened.
When it comes to talking about Faye, please listen. When it comes to giving sermons, Mr. Bhushan was saying the PM should stop following. I would like to understand what did he do when sitting on a constitutional position, a person calls the Prime Minister in office of this country a psychopath? What did he do? Nothing. He kept shut.
All right. Mr. Prashant Bhushan, do you want to respond to
cannot
that
have
before I
double
bring in the rest of my panelists?
Faye, can I come in, please?
Yes, Adil, I see your hand up,
You
but I
see,
have to give Mr. Bhushan an opportunity to respond.
Calling the Prime Minister maut ka saudagar for his alleged acts of what he did during the Gujarat genocide, what he did or did not do during the Gujarat genocide or in these
Are you the court,
fake
sir?
encounter killings, etc.
Are you the court?
Is not on par with
Is
people
he the
saying
court?
ye
Faye,
kutiya mar gayi
Faye,
to
is he the honorable
that
court
Gauri
to
Lankesh's
pronounce that
murder
he-
and
the
ye
Prime
pille
Minister did it?
bilbila rahe hain and
Sir, I can say
and
you
that
did it.
person is
Mr.
being
Bhushan, I can say
treated,
you and
is
your
being
urban
encouraged
experts did it.
by the
Is it
Prime
proved?
Minister.
Okay, hang on. I think
Sir, it is encouraged by you.
Gentlemen, it's very easy to get
Now my
derailed by
point is,
politics.
I can say
One
point
second.
it on you. Now what are you going to? How are you going to prove it?
You must know that I don't care. It's very easy to get derailed by politics, but we have to acknowledge the fact that we have a very serious problem in our country. Completely innocent people are being killed by mobs. And it's a situation that we have not gotten to the bottom of. We have not investigated where the WhatsApp messages are coming from. We don't know what's causing it. We know that all of the WhatsApp messages that led to lynching, especially about kidnapping, at least had the term child lifting in it. So which means that there's a pattern here. They might all be coming from the same source. We haven't even investigated that. Every time we bring it up, we wind up getting tangled in politics. And perhaps that's what's causing the problem. But I want to speak to the petitioner. Tushar Gandhi joins us in the studio. He's a petitioner in this case. Mr. Gandhi, why did you approach the court?
No, it was a worrying situation because people who are responsible for law and order were busy passing the buck to one another, and nothing was being done. The result was that even the law enforcement agencies were being reduced to becoming mere spectators, or by their inactions not doing their duties and participating in the lynchings, and it was going out of control. And it's not just lynching, it is this tendency that a mob is right and a mob can get away with anything.
Yes.
And so in every field, even today when this historic judgment has been delivered, the ruling party mob goes and beats up Swami Agnivesh, roughs him up, and Swami Agnivesh, who wants is seeking assistance or help or protection, is denied that. What are we debating over here? And there is no condemnation of that act also. Were they waiting for Swami Agnivesh to be lynched and then express their regret? So what? And this is what is the worrying aspect, that our society is becoming so inured to violence and the tragedy of human life that they're not bothered about anything else. And when the executive doesn't do its duty, then the only recourse is to go to the judiciary.
Mr. Arima Sundaram, do you believe that we're currently infected with hate?
We have an epidemic of hate.
Well, the fact of the matter is that lynching itself is but an expression of hatred, and therefore the more lynching you find, that means there is more innate hatred which finds a need to be expressed. But Faye, I think the whole problem of this lynching can never be addressed unless we understand four basic factors. There are four basic factors which go about in causing this kind of mentality of lynching. Number one, the first factor is that a large number of people, I'm talking numbers, a large number, maybe even a majority, disagrees with a view of a minority or of a few. That's number one. So you have a majority disagreeing with a minority. Number two, with social media having become what it has today, the majority can fan other quote-unquote like-thinking people or excite even people who are not like-thinking into starting to think like them, into doing something about it. This is number two. Number three, because it's a large number, because it's a majority, there's an apathy of the government. There's an apathy of the police. There's an apathy of the government to do anything because they're worried about, vote bank or other reasons, and there are too many people who feel one way, so why should we go against it? And number four is the feeling of security amongst the people in that mob, thinking that since we are so many of us, no punishment is going to be visited on me. There are too many of us. There's a security in numbers. Now, these are four issues which have to be tackled if we are serious about stopping lynching. And when the court has asked the government to look into it, I think the only way is if the government really looks at it from all these four angles and says what should be done for each of the four. The minority has to be protected. A majority voice cannot be allowed to get into instigating others. The persons who troll and the people who use social media to get people excited should themselves be punished, although they may not be the actual people doing the lynching. They're the ones behind it. They should be punished. Police and the state should be come down on very, very hard if they show any apathy and don't take action. And lastly, the people who participate in this mob, each one of them should be treated as part of a common conspiracy. And if a person has died, they should all be charged under 302 for a common conspiracy and bring about a deterrent. All four have to be addressed, and as the court said, a new law has to come into place. And it now is the will of the government whether they intend to do something about it or whether they're very happy with allowing what they feel is a majority view to prevail and to suppress a minority view. I don't want to believe the government wants that. I'm sure they'll do something about it. I hope they will.
Raman Malik wanted to respond again. Mr. Malik, go ahead, please.
Faye, I wanted to understand, Mr. Sundaram is a very, very senior lawyer and he knows the books and the written material in the books very well. One, I would like to understand what does our constitution say? How does it describe a minority? Whatever I know a little, it said a population less than 10%. That is what I had read. Maybe I'm wrong. So one, I needed to understand from him that. And second, the mob lynching that we are talking about today.
Straight away.
And
I will tell you, I'm not talking about a legal definition of minority. I'm talking of less people versus more people. More people versus less people. I'm not going into numbers and percentages and legal definitions of minority.
Sir, please. Sir, please let me finish, sir. You're very senior advocate. You're a very senior lawyer. I cannot compare in any stage to you. So let me please finish my statement. Now, my humble point, second, is that what is lynching, as you described, it is about a mob killing people who are innocent in a broader term. Now, has it happened in India for the first time? Has the collective intelligentsia of India
in such a way
up
and
to
patronized
it? What did they do? When it was, please let me finish.
You're not finishing, you're going to take up all the time in your inconsequential
47,
jabber.
The second incident, 84. Please, can you please stop
Mr.
disturbing
Malik, we
in
have
between?
the data
Just
if
because
you have a
a
question
surname
for
by
us.
Gandhi does not give you any right.
No, hang on. Let's not get personal. We have the data.
1947 was the first lynching incident in India. What did somebody do about it? 84, what was done about it? 1990,
I live in
what was done about
2018 and I'm concerned about then.
Where were these people at that point?
Hang on. No, Mr. Malik.
Where
Mr. Malik.
was
And I'm going to ask Alison Saldana of India Spend to give us the data.
Who were minority
but that's,
in the area.
So
I
hang
want
on.
to understand from
Raman
this
Malik,
intelligent panel, what were they doing?
Okay, all right. Raman Malik, first of all, I do believe what Arima Sundaram was referring to was actually numbers. When 20 people beat up one person, 20 is the majority, one person is the minority, is what he meant. He didn't mean that they were members of any specific community. If I understood him correctly, he actually said, I'm talking about numbers. That was the definition of lynching, that the people who are doing the beating outnumber the people who are getting beaten. First of all. Secondly,
so
we cannot possibly be... One second. Okay, let me finish. Raman Malik, if we make excuses of what happened in the past, how have we grown in the last 70 years? If we are going to use partition as a justification for allowing what's happening today. Alison Saldana of India Spend, answer Mr. Raman Malik's question. Is this happening for the first time? Because the Supreme Court is taking cognizance, or is it worse than it has ever been before?
Right. So we can debate when did lynching start, but let's talk about facts right now. We have data collected from 2010 to date, and as far as bovine-related hate violence is concerned, there has been a 98% rise in incidents since 2014.
You're saying bovine very politely. You mean cow?
Yeah, cow protection violence since 2014 has risen exponentially. And in the last year, from 2017 to 2018, child lifting related, rumor related violence has risen 7 times.
Let's talk
We're talking about a rise in mob violence over any trigger.
So you said basically lynching that has happened in the last 1 year based on rumors of kidnapping has gone up 7x.
Yes.
And that's the worrying bit.
Yeah.
And the thing that they all have in common was a WhatsApp message that did the rounds about child lifting. And child lifting is not even a thing, it's kidnapping. But all of these messages had the term child lifting in them.
Right.
Does that suggest that there was maybe a common source to these messages? What are the people who are studying these messages right now? What is their conclusion?
So we are still, we've been talking to experts who say that there are clear vested interests behind these messages, and there seems, and because if you look at the pattern of violence in child lifting and you look at it for cow vigilantism, it's the same. It's preying on outsider-insider notions, historically between communities, historically pitted against each other, and you can see that there seems to be an instigator who is invisible, and it's a lot harder to find that person. But the reason why this is spreading right now is because the state has not come down hard on previous incidents of vigilantism over the last 4 years, which is why now any little incident is sparking something.
All right, now Adil Singh hasn't spoken yet, then I'll come back to you. One second. Adil Singh hasn't spoken at all. Just allow Adil Singh to make a statement and then I'll come back to you. Adil Singh,
none less than the Prime Minister. When it comes down to cow vigilantism, none less the Prime Minister very categorically made a very hard-hitting statement.
Empty words.
Ever did that kind of a statement?
Prosecution has been less than a handful of cases.
Give me one PM.
Right, Adil Singh, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Faye, for finally giving me an opportunity to make my comments. The Congress party welcomes the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, and this is a scathing indictment of the BJP. The fact of the matter is, and I don't understand why some of your panelists are not willing to acknowledge the elephant in the room.
How?
The BJP stands for hate,
Faye,
violence
you
and bigotry.
ask him to
Now let me
explain
back
how
it up.
BJP
Faye,
is indicted.
you need to intervene and please ask the BJP spokesperson not to interrupt, otherwise I'll get up and go.
Gentlemen,
I'm
please.
being very categorical. He cannot mindlessly interrupt every panelist.
No, Raman Malik, he's speaking for the first
Either you
time.
moderate
He's
the
waited
debate
very
or there's no
politely.
point. This can be a
Let
BJP
him
monologue.
finish making his points, please. Adil Singh, go ahead.
Faye, the fact of the matter is the BJP stands for hate, bigotry and violence, and now let me back it up with facts. When the Union Culture Minister Mahesh Sharma goes and pays homage to a murder accused, to the Dadri murder accused, what message are you sending to your cadres? When Giriraj Singh goes and felicitates convicted writers and murderers, what message are you sending to your cadres? When a BJP MP from Jharkhand, Nishikant Dubey, volunteers to pay the legal fees of a lynching accused, what message are you sending to your cadres? When the BJP MLA from Alwar says that Pehlu Khan met his fate, what message are you sending to your cadres? When a union minister by the name of Jayant Sinha garlands convicted lynchers, let me emphasize this, convicted lynchers, convicted by a court of law, felicitates them at his residence, what message are you sending to the cadres? Now let me point out MHA data to you. If you look at the data in the past 8 years, more than 97% of cow-related violence has taken place 2014. I just don't understand. Why are we not acknowledging the fact that this is because of the BJP's ideology? It is none other than Mr. Modi who in the run-up to the 2014 election spoke about the pink revolution. Why are you not pointing that out? Today, the country's social fabric is tearing down. And now let me quote what the Supreme Court is saying. Let me quote. Faye, please allow me to complete.
Let me
point out what the Supreme...
Okay, gentlemen. Well,
you know, you are legally ignorant and you're
Adil Singh,
socially, you don't have etiquette,
let me-
please listen.
No, Adil Singh,
Faye,
let
can
me
you please
rebut
allow
you,
me to
please.
listen?
No,
Please,
one
can you
second.
please
Let me
allow me to
rebut
make
you
my
and then
comment?
you'd want to answer. So if I look at the instances of lynching, we've had more or equal number of lynching incidents about kidnapping or child lifting as we've had about cow protection. That's one. Secondly, the lynching has happened in states across the country, several of which are not ruled by the BJP, like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, for example, that's had a few instances, West Bengal, Assam, and like there's a map on the screen. So are you suggesting that the BJP was in any way responsible for kidnapping or child lifting led rumors? Because how would you possibly justify that suggestion?
I'm glad you've asked me that question. Now let me respond to it. The point is it started with violence against minorities, degenerated to Dalits, women and children, followed by xenophobia and parochialism. Now I don't know whether you've seen the lynching video from Assam. Those hapless boys are heard shouting, "We are Assamese, we are Assamese." Now we know the kind of jargon which the BJP spreads in Assam. I don't need to point out in your debate. You know that better than me. Why go any further? 40 kilometers from your Noida studio, Faye, there is the Hapur lynching. The police tries to pass it off as a road rage incident when it's an act of murder. Who's responsible?
Who
Now let me read out. No, I don't want to even have a dialogue with this
Malik,
BJP
respond very quickly,
spokesperson.
then
He's
Tushar Gandhi,
legally
please.
ignorant. Can I please point
Your
out?
Gentlemen, you're
president
speaking at the
goes
same
and
time.
starts conversing for him.
You know, this man has...
Okay, all right,
Can
all
I
right.
please
Is there
make my
any
comments?
better example of
Can you please
lynchers?
intervene here?
You
Faye,
make
can you
Bharat
please
Tere
intervene
Tukde
for
Honge
heaven's sake,
gang
or is it Mr.
as a
Malik who
heroes.
run this
Is
debate?
there any better example?
No, one second.
You have not been able to file a
one
charge
second,
sheet till
gentlemen,
now.
gentlemen, please.
I
please.
have a right to rebut to you.
But you will have to wait for me to allow that rebuttal, Mr. Raman Malik.
You are mindless. You are the ugly underbelly which is ailing India. You are part
And
of the
what are
problem.
you?
You are the malaise
Moralless?
who ails India.
Good.
And I'm saying it equivocally. Now, Faye, can I make my comment?
And what
please?
are you?
All right, I'm taking
From
this
Nehru
away from
to
the
Rahul
politicians
Gandhi, everything
because
is
really
a
I have
farce.
no
We're
room
not
for this
getting
sort of. This is
anywhere.
if this is not hate, I don't know what
if
is.
he's
Tushar
gonna
Gandhi,
give
please.
personal
Faye,
attacks,
to
I'm
go
going to
back
do
to
it.
your question about is there a pattern, even in the cow
Faye, can I
protection,
please make my
cow suraksha
Adil, I'll come
lynching
back to you.
cases,
Please allow me
there
to
have
make my
been
comment. I have to
proof,
quote what
there have
the
been
Supreme
people
Court
who
has
have
said.
boasted on camera
Faye,
on
this is
how
not fair.
they
You let the
train
BJP
and how
spokesperson
they
interrupt
have
and
strategic
eat into my time.
beatings
This
to
is
cause
absolutely not fair.
permanent damage and how they
One second.
beat up victims to
yes.
kill.
Sorry, forgive me. Adil Singh, I did give you a lot of time to speak. You and the BJP spokesperson have in fact taken the same amount
With
of time.
constant interruption by the BJP spokesperson. I'm sorry, Faye. No, not at all. You can see it after the debate. I need to quote what the Supreme Court has to say.
But
Please
we've
give me
already
30
presented
seconds. That's
a
all I'm asking
report
for.
to the chat.
I did not interrupt any other
That's what the Supreme
spokesperson.
Court has to say. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. I would hate for you to feel a sense of injustice.
Please, thank you so much, Faye.
Then I will quote what the Supreme Court has
Thank
to say.
you so much. I'm glad you're offering me this concession.
You should just keep
There's been an
politicians together
unfortunate
and let them
litany
take
of
up 1
spiraling
hour
mob violence
and talk
and
senseless
agonized horror,
trivia.
presenting a grim and a gruesome picture. You know, if somebody is going to interrupt, there's no point where you can continue with your debate.
Oh my God.
No, finish what you're saying, Adil Singh. Please, finish what you're saying.
No, there's no point. If I'm going to be interrupted each time, there's no point. The country's social fabric is tearing down and you're letting the BJP spokesperson interrupt me mindlessly.
But
It's for India, it's not for the Congress or the
that was
BJP
Tushar
today.
Gandhi and that was not Raman Malik who spoke. The last person who spoke was Tushar Gandhi because...
Yeah, and
Mr.
I'm
Gandhi,
not a
please let me
spokesman of
complete
any
now.
party.
Please, now let me quote what the Supreme Court has to say.
All right. Very quickly though, please. Go ahead.
There's been an unfortunate litany of spiraling mob violence and agonized horror, presenting a grim and a gruesome picture that compels us to reflect whether the populace of a great republic like ours has lost the values of social tolerance to sustain a diverse culture. This is not Adil Singh Boparai, the spokesperson for the Congress party, saying this. This is the Chief Justice of India, Mr. Raman Malik.
All right. Now, I interrupted Mr. Tushar Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi, I
Let me also
apologize.
quote it to you.
Okay, 1 second. Mr. Gandhi, please.
No, what I was trying to say before I was accused
he
of
should read the point
interrupting
number
things
39.
was
no
that
dispute that
there is a
any act
pattern.
of
There is a
lynching
pattern
is
and a
unlawful.
very well
But
established
we are
pattern
concerned
of
we are not concerned with
in
any
these lynching
specific
cases
case.
where the accused have on camera boasted about how they have trained to inflict the maximum damage and how they train their people to inflict permanent injury and also to ensure that the person is never the same again. And there have been police who have come and said that they have discovered that there is a common thread running through all the states in these mob lynching cases. What more do you want then to come to the conclusion that there is a organized conspiracy across the nation? These are not spontaneous acts. These are acts that have been orchestrated, trained for, and armed for, and these are acts that have received a patronization by the inaction of the law and order machinery. What more evidence do you want from there?
Hang on. There's no one, there's no place in the Supreme Court order, at least, that there's a mention of this being organized or, patronized by anyone. Mr. Arivasudaram, do you agree with that this is organized? There may be a pattern, but does that allow us the conclusion that this is organized?
Has the Supreme Court said that, Faye?
No, it hasn't.
Faye, I really found this very unfortunate. Please allow me, please. I don't like to be interrupted. I don't interrupt anyone. Now, Faye, I find this very unfortunate because I've been hearing this big fight going on between BJP and Congress over who's doing what, etc. According to me, neither is doing it. You can hardly say that the BJP is behind the lynchings. Of course they are not. Where is the question? The problem is not there. The problem is somewhere else. You see, a group of people sufficiently large in number take a cause into their head. It may even be to hang a guilty man whom they feel is guilty. Lynching doesn't mean it's only done to the innocent. Lynching can also be done to a person who is accused of a crime and who has a right to be tried by a court and then decided by a court of law. Even he can be lynched. Now, for example, you say that a person is a child molester, you pass it around among enough people and go and hang him. That's also lynching. The point what I'm making here is that lynching occurs because a sufficient number of people are stirred because of social media and other reasons into believing that there are sufficient number of them who need to do something about it, and they go and take law into their own hands. Now, the fault of the government, whether it is the central government or a state government or the government in Tamil Nadu or the government in Karnataka or wherever, the fault of the government is their apathy. They're keeping quiet and not doing anything about it. Why? because they feel there are a large number of people who think and feel like the people who the lynchers feel and who support what the lynchers wanted to do, and therefore they feel they're going against what I would term public opinion, if you can call it that. And that apathy of the government, apathy of the police, whichever state, it's not one party or the other, different states are ruled by different parties, but every state tends to do the same thing. The apathy, because there are a large number of people they feel are supporting such a lynching. So finally, I think we should look into ourselves as citizens. And that's why I said the fourth most important thing. Many people think they can get away with it because they're in a mob and they're not going to be caught. So when a punishment is being thought of for this, address all four issues. Treat each one in that mob as a murderer in his own right, by treating it as a conspiracy, by treating it as a common objective. Do that, and you have a deterrent there. But act against any state government and the police for not acting on it.
Yes.
Take action against them for criminal negligence. So you form a law which will take care of the matter in a holistic way, and not try to isolate one or two aspects of it. It's too wide a problem with too many aspects which has to be looked at holistically.
Well, I want to bring Mr. Bhushan in. Mr. Prashant Bhushan's been listening very quietly. Mr. Bhushan, do you agree with Tushar Gandhi that there is some sort of organized, perhaps motivation, or, this is being patronized by anybody? Do you see that as well? Or do you agree with Mr. Arimasundaram today?
No, I agree with Mr. Tushar Gandhi. You see, there are several facts which are staring everybody in the face. Fact number one, that these lynchings have increased exponentially after 2014 when the BJP government came to power. Fact number two, that the several members, ministers, etc. of the ruling party have been involved in these lynchings, not in the lynchings, but at least in feeding the lynchers, in garlanding the lynchers, in encouraging the lynchers, in encouraging this whole troll lynch mob that comes, etc. That's fact number two. Fact number three is that the police machinery, which is controlled by the government, they have not implemented the police reforms judgment of the Supreme Court. They have not formed police complaints authorities. They are not even giving statutory tenure to a regular DGP. They are not appointing field officers for a minimum statutory period of 2 years. They want to exercise political control over the police, and they have succeeded in doing
BJP,
that. With the result that the police is also following political orders.
And you Naxalite
police is
supporter.
also following political
hang on,
orders.
Raman Malik.
And
How can you say regulate BJP? What do you mean by that? No, this is quite offending.
So, what do you mean urban Naxal? What is an urban Naxal? Who came up with this?
Regulating BJP.
I didn't say regulating BJP. I don't know what you are hearing. What I am saying is that instead of implementing the police reforms judgment of the Supreme Court to free the police from the political control of the politicians, they have used the police machinery as an instrumentality for aiding and abetting what these political leaders are really encouraging. It's the lynch mob mentality that these political leaders are encouraging, as we are seeing across the board. And the police has been made a handmaiden of all this, with the result that the police doesn't really go after the lynchers. Right. They often make cases against the victims.
The victims.
We are seeing that repeatedly.
This is true, at least in cases of cow mob lynching. I refuse to call it vigilantism because that doesn't fit. To be a vigilante, you have to be Batman. You're not someone who kills people in the name of the cow. But in several cases, when there has been a lynching in the name of the cow, the police have filed cases against the victim for possessing beef, and not against those who actually beat the person up or killed the person. Tushar Gandhi, very quickly.
I wanted to come and you see the most important aspect of this ruling is the Supreme Court asking the government to form a stringent law
Yes.
to act against the lynchers. Now, you must understand that it is not as if for 70 years we did not have sufficient laws to prosecute the guilty. The fact is, none of the governments has ever shown any inclination to apply those laws to these kind of crimes and allowed the accused to get away with it. And that is the reason why today the Supreme Court has had to say that not only bring in a law, but they've even framed it and said it has to take care of these aspects.
Yes.
That is the most important
It's been
thing,
very
which shows
specific about
that,
what it should
yes,
take care of.
that
Yes, you're
none
right.
of the government so far has ever shown any inclination to enact a stringent law which will inhibit this kind of activity.
Let me also point out, and Adil Singh and Raman Malik, this question will come to you after I have spoken with Alison Saldana, and I'm reading from page 39 of the Supreme Court's order. It said, it shall be the duty of the central government as well as state governments to take steps to curb and stop the dissemination of irresponsible and explosive messages, videos or other material in various social media platforms that have a tendency to incite mob violence and lynching of any kind. So, Alison Saldana, in your research, have you found any investigation from any government, state or centre, into where these messages have come from and how they can stop it?
Well, there hasn't been any reports of investigations. In fact, that's something that the experts that we've been talking to have been urging, that the state governments and the central government carry out a national level investigation into the spread of these fake rumours that are obviously incensing people across the country.
Absolutely. So here's the question. I don't want to hear about the politics. I actually want to hear about the solutions. Has there been any sort of investigation into the WhatsApp messages that's causing the lynching in any government? Adil Singh, you first.
Well, Faye, the solution can only come if we rid the BJP of its bigoted ideology. The Supreme Court in paragraph 19 recognizes, acknowledges expressly that there is growing intolerance and polarization in society. No, let me answer the way I want to frame it, the way the Congress party believes what is happening in this country. The point today is that let's see who is the fountainhead of fake news in this country today. Whether it's Twitter, whether it is WhatsApp, there are people who issue death threats, who issue rape threats, who circulate pornographic videos, all emanating from the larger BJP ecosystem. I don't need to repeat the trolls and their Twitter handles. It is a reality. It is before this country. So the point is the BJP is deliberately creating fault lines in society, and they intend to benefit it. Another important finding of
Where's the proof,
please see the death threats, please see the rape threats. These are individuals. Well, if there is a Twitter troll who's followed by the Prime Minister and issues a rape threat or issues death threats, I don't think you need more proof. I can send those pictures to you, send those screenshots to you that these people are followed by the Prime Minister. I'll send it right after this debate. I have no problem. But let me make another point which the Supreme Court elucidates. The Supreme Court said that in all these cases of mob violence, now it is imperative for the police to charge the accused persons under section 153A of the IPC. This is a provision which deals with promoting enmity between different religious groups. You have to understand the BJP's mindset, their bigoted ideology is fueling all this.
Okay.
Why is it that all this is happening?
Allow the BJP to respond now. Allow the BJP to respond. I just want to point out to our viewers. All right, Adil.
Post 2014.
Right.
There's no rocket science involved here.
All right. So I also want to point out to our viewers, in several of the videos that emerge from lynching, there are shots of the police who are with the lynchers, either standing by and allowing it to happen, or part of it in some cases, and that's the shocking part. All right, allow Raman Malik to respond. And Raman Malik, my first question, which hasn't been answered yet, has there been any sort of investigation on a national or a state level into where the WhatsApp messages have come from?
Yes,
who's generating these messages? Please tell us what the findings of this investigation was.
Faye, whatever the things are, whether it was WhatsApp, whether it is Facebook, other things, the government has given very clear instructions. These people are coming out with ads which inform people. That is one part of it. But yes, the major part of it is a lot of things happen because one must understand that we start debating on the prime time, on an event, and before the investigation is concluded, we create a perception. So that is also one part of it. That also gives some kind of euphoria to these people. But let's come down to the main point. Let's come down to one scenario. Can you please?
Gentlemen, please stop interrupting each other.
Can you
Is
please?
Mr. Ahuja your BJP legislator from the Congress party?
I do not want to debate with a pretty.
One second. Stop
These are
interrupting
leaders of
each
your
other.
party.
Raman Malik, has there been an investigation into the WhatsApp messages? Have you found anything in that WhatsApp investigation? And have you made any arrests? How many people have been arrested? Please tell me.
There could be an incident, let's say the Junaid incident, which happened in Faridabad. That was basically a law and order issue, which was not a lynching onto some minority majority issue. It was primarily a law and order issue which happened on a seat, and it was given a name by the brigade as lynching.
Supreme Court
it was
calls
given,
these
please.
hate crimes.
It was given a name like brigade.
See paragraph 20.
And can you stop? Can you
WhatsApp
stop jumping
investigation.
in between like
I'm
a
prompting
popcorn?
you, Raman
Please
Malik.
wait.
WhatsApp investigation.
Now, the important point is, let's start also look at what Mr. Gandhi said. Mr. Gandhi said, is it an organized thing? So if I take that argument, then the beneficiary happens to be the Tukde, the Congress and their supporters, and the victim happens to be BJP, because either this happens.
Mr. Malik, can we give you 5 minutes to do away with all your jargon?
Then,
you are people
if that
who are
is
You're not
what
answering my
Mr.
question.
Gandhi
All right,
is
Raman
saying,
Malik, I'm going to give you another 30 seconds
You
to
are
answer my
dividing our
question about an
country.
investigation
You are
into
tearing
the
down our
WhatsApp
fabric.
messages.
You kill people in the name of religion, in the name of caste.
All right,
you
this has gone
lynch
too
people.
far.
You
All right.
carry out fake encounters.
Okay,
and you have the audacity to accuse the Congress party.
Stop.
You should hang your head in shame.
Stop.
Who's lynching?
Both of you stop.
You
All right.
lynch 10
Alison
million,
Saldana.
you lynch 1 million people
Your
for becoming a
lynching
prime
mindset,
minister.
your mentality. Oh really? Where do you get these
That
facts
is
from?
Congress, sir.
It was Mr. Modi who spoke about pink
From 10
revolution.
million
Is it any wonder our country is filled with hate?
4,000 in Delhi.
There's an example right there.
All right, Alison Saldana, you had a point to make.
Right. I mean, we do have the start of this the cow-related lynchings, wherein it is predominantly in BJP states. Over 56% of these cases are from BJP states.
Okay.
But when it comes to child lifting related mob lynchings, the BJP states form 30% of the incidents. That's not the majority. They're actually in Orissa and Tamil Nadu. So, there is inaction all around.
Yes.
And in fact, in 10 districts, there have been more than one incident of mob lynching reported. So it's not that, so even after one incident led to a victim being beaten up or killed, there was another one that happened, which shows a clear failure. So that's what the data shows.
As far as the arrests are concerned, as far as prosecution is concerned, in conviction, the numbers are very, very low, aren't they?
Absolutely. And in fact, as you pointed out earlier, with cow-related lynching, they file complaints against the victims, which sends out this mixed signal to the mobs, because they think then their acts are justified. And they are
actually, that's hardly a mixed signal. That's a very clear,
Yeah,
that's a very clear signal.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Mr. Gandhi?
No, I think, Faye, we need to take this concern away from the official India and take it into the society, because the real danger is the amount of venom and viciousness that is creeping into everyday people in our society. And it's not going to be cured by laws, it's not going to be cured by Supreme Court activism or judicial activism or political will. It has to become a social dialogue. We have reached a stage where if we don't start a process of talking in our society, this hate is going to tear us apart, and no law will ever be able to save us. We have an example of Mumbai past the post-Babri Masjid riots, when along with judicial and police and things, there was an experiment of Mohalla committees.
Who said he
and that has been
make
shown
pieces out of the
to
Prime
have
Minister.
succeeded. Please shut up. That has been shown to succeed. and bear fruits in places like
can
this.
shut up,
We
sir.
need that kind of an initiative to come up in this country now if we have to save it, because otherwise we are beyond hope. And that will be the greatest tragedy to India.
Arima Sundaram had something to say. Mr. Sundaram, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I have to say, Faye, is basically this. You see, it is unfortunately a vicious circle. What is really happening is that, you know, there are causes. Now, how do these causes rise? You talk about cow vigilantism, you could talk about other things. Now, these kind of causes arise because there's a public mood which is being encouraged, which makes people think that way. When people think that way, a large number of them think that way. And once they're large in numbers, they feel they have the strength and the ability to go and attack a poor person, one or two people, and then lynch him. Now, the state then is part of this complicity. Why? Because they say, look, there are so many people on one side, and there's only one chap who's been lynched on the other. So let me support so many people because that's a vote bank. And therefore, the state becomes complicit, not necessarily through active action, but rather through total inaction and apathy, which by necessity encourages this kind of action. So when you look at it that way, you have a kind of feeling, an intolerant feeling, which is increasing more and more over the past decade. The intolerant feeling is increasing. Now, vigilantism, I don't call it vigilantism also, this lynch mentality is a way to give effect to your lack of tolerance. The police see that a majority of people think in the same way of lacking tolerance and therefore remain quiet. The government feels sufficient people feel that way, therefore let's not speak against them, because if we speak against them, we're going to lose votes. So it's a whole vicious circle which all arises from one, lack of tolerance, with which this country is getting more and more into. I'm not talking about one party or the other party. I'm talking about every human being, every Indian is getting less and less tolerant. We have issues of women and how they should dress. We have issues of religion. We have issues of what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat. In every action, we have a thing of what you can paint. Have you painted something which is insulting something? In every way, we have intolerance. This intolerance is encouraged by complete apathy by the state in punishing the people who encourage the intolerance, by punishing the people who then are naive enough or childish enough or in fact intolerant enough to participate in it and go and hammer a poor single person because he is a minority, and I'm not talking about minority in religion or otherwise, he's a few who's a target of the intolerance, and maybe because he is tolerant. But the sum result of all this is this cannot go on the way it is unless the state acting through the police continues in a manner with total apathy and continues not doing anything about it only because they don't want to spoil a vote bank, because more people feel that way and less feel the other way.
All right, Adil, I heard you wanted to come in, but I want to give Raman Malik an opportunity to respond.
A vote bank.
Raman Malik, I'm going to ask the question again, please, if I may. 1 second. My question is this. In the era of digital India and the fact that our IT minister says he can summon Mark Zuckerberg into India to question him, have we conducted an investigation to find out the origin of the WhatsApp messages about child lifting and cow protection that have led to these killings? Have we tried and failed, or have we not tried at all? Which one is it, Raman Malik?
Can you, I could only hear half of it. After the Zuckerberg issue, can you please reiterate your question?
I will. In the era of digital India, and a point where the IT minister says he can summon Mark Zuckerberg to India for questioning, I want to understand if we have conducted an investigation into the origin of the WhatsApp messages that have led to the lynching. Whether it is child lifting or cow violence, have we found anything at the bottom, at the end of that trail? So either we started an investigation and failed, or we haven't done an investigation at all. Which is it, Mr. Malik?
See, I'll try and explain it to you a little. I have been a victim of something like this because I've been getting messages over a period of time which invite me to join the terrorism brigade, and it says Osama bin Laden is our God. Now, these messages are covered overleap, and those kind of things. So it has a lot of encryption in that. So it would take time. Even I'm waiting for the police and the cyber cell to get the proper investigation and find the origin of it. That is one part. But the second most important part, which we are missing in the debate, is you can start talking about vigilantism, you can start talking about mob lynching. But when you talk about mob lynching, why is it that you forget about the mob which lynched people without messages in Kerala, in Karnataka, in Orissa, in Bengal, where the victim was BJP members or Karyakartas? And here also, again and again, I would like to understand why is it that, you know, it was not the rumor mill which killed these people. It was sheer hate. And the hate is displayed here in this panel also. So I would like to understand the generators of this hate. Why have they resolved down to and stooped down to this level for making people murderers?
All right, Adil, do you want to answer that? Because
instead of speaking on abstract, let's pinpoint. I'll pinpoint an example for you. The Harper lynching. What happened 40 kilometers from your studio was that a person was lynched and another was brutally beaten up. What did the police do? We're talking about law and order, but the problem is the police reports to the political executive of the state, which in the case of Uttar Pradesh is the BJP. So instead of charging those people for 302, read with 295A, read with 153A, the police came up with a bogus story of this being a road rage incident, and the truth is now out. So this is the problem. They are botching up investigations when there is a public outcry, and this is leading to increased fault lines in society. This is the problem. Mr. Malik, I did not interrupt you. Why do you have this bad habit of interrupting mindlessly? Why do you behave so immaturely? Please have the patience to listen.
Even you should
Secondly,
explain things.
what would you call the case of Swami Agnivesh?
When you expect things from me, please give the courtesy back.
gentlemen, really, this is getting really tired.
Now, can I respond?
Neither of you can finish an answer without the other one interrupting. Please allow Adil Singh to finish his point. Raman Malik. Adil Singh, please go ahead.
Faye, please take the case of Swami Agnivesh. Here's an individual who'd gone to Jharkhand to address tribals. The BJP can disagree. We're in a democracy. The BJP can disagree with Swami Agnivesh, but that doesn't mean that your disagreement extends to beating him up, to beating up somebody who's actually my father's age, who must be over 60 years. How does Mr. Malik justify this? Now, Mr. Malik will come up with another justification, qualification saying, well, even this is legitimized in a society. Please understand, this rising mindless violence is breaking our society. Please, let's be watchful of this. That's my point.
All right, I'm going to give the last word to Prashant Bhushan because he's been so quiet up till now. Mr. Bhushan?
Please explain me. Please explain
Mr.
me.
Bhushan,
what
please.
are you doing about your ex-president who said Khoon ka saudagar? The verbal lynching that she did, what have you done about that?
You have lost your mental equilibrium,
the
Malik
character
Saab,
assassination of the
I'm
current
constrained
prime
to say
minister. What have you done
Production
about
control
that?
room. I'd like to hear Mr. Bhushan's answer, please. Mr. Prashant Bhushan, last word to Mr. Bhushan.
You see, Mr. Arima Sundaram tried to say that this lynching mentality has become a majoritarian impulse in society, and the politicians, unfortunately for vote banks, etc., have to follow them, and therefore they are apathetic. It's in fact the other way around. It's some politicians in this country want to win elections by polarizing the electorate, by polarizing the citizens on religious lines, on caste lines, etc. And therefore they are encouraging this kind of bigotry, violence and lynch mob mentality. They feel that this can pay them dividends in the elections by encouraging religious polarization. And that is why Gau Rakshaks, these cow vigilantes or the cow lynchers, have been given official recognition by most of these BJP governments. They have been given identity cards, they are given protection by the police, and they are allowed to roam around freely and beat up, stop vehicles, pick them up and beat up people. So it's really exactly the other way around than what Mr. Sundaram said. It's really the politicians who are interested in religious polarization, in dividing society and then getting the majority vote, who are really responsible for promoting this kind of violence and this kind of culture
and an
in our society.
That lynches people.
All right, I've run out of time and I have to wrap this up here, but I just want to remind our audience, in the course of this conversation, we've heard all kinds of labels. We've heard labels like Tukre gang and urban Naxals and anti-nationals, all labels of hate. When did political discourse in our country reach this point of hate? Why is it that we can't finish a conversation in our country without being labeled something or the other? We're no longer just citizens or human beings. We're all haters of something. We're all labeled with something. And if there's one thing that actually strung through all of the experts who spoke today, it's the fact that society needs to look inward. Having said that, I refuse to believe that in our country we can't get to the bottom of a WhatsApp forward. We can. We have the minds, we have the investigating officers. We haven't tried. We haven't tried to get to the bottom of the WhatsApp messages that have led to lynching. We haven't tried to get to the bottom of hate. Remember, it is in the general interest of all politicians that we hate each other as citizens. If we hate each other enough, we will not have the time to ask about jobs. We will not have the mind to ask about potholes or water or education or the lack of health facilities. This is hate at a whole new level. A faceless, nameless mob that takes lives and leaves behind fear. The Supreme Court has taken the first step, and now the ball is in the court of the Government of India that starts its session of the monsoon session tomorrow. You have no excuse now but to come up with a law that is so watertight, that punishes the police for not taking action, that punishes the police for standing with those lynching instead of with the victims, that gets to the bottom of the messages that are spreading hate. Because if you don't, we will know which side you are on. Instead of wasting time arguing about which side you are on, you'd be better served actually coming up with that law, and do it quickly. Thanks for watching.